Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new podcast where we share our bits and bytes on the ever-changing tech industry and how we can be more effective in it. With your hosts, Zeno, Rocha, and myself, Jonni, Lundy.
Wow. Hey, Jonni. Man,
so official.
So official. Come on, like this sounds like amazing. I'm truly like excited.
It's the real deal.
It is, man.
So Zeno, tell me about why are you wanting to start a podcast?
Dude, like there's so many reasons, and I feel like we had this meeting, you and me, right? We had this event in our calendar. It was called Creative Fridays. And every Friday, you and me would just talk and update about different things that were happening in our lives. And we would always talk about technology. We'd always talk about what's happening in the tech industry, career tips and things that we are learning, and just new apps and new tech that we discover. And I feel like, man, we can make this official and we can share those ideas with people. So the reason why I'm here is because first, I want to talk to you as a friend. I want to be like just exchanging ideas and collaborating. But I also want to learn from others. And I want to see, okay, what are the different opinions that people are bringing and what are their experiences? And okay, I would love to hear that. And if we can do both of those things while learning new things and sharing with people, then it's the perfect world. So that's why I'm here. That's why awesome. I'm so excited. How about you?
That's so cool. Yeah, super similar to you. Like we've been talking like this, pretty much the same that the podcast will be. We've been having conversations like this for a long time, and we kind of wanted to just take advantage of the opportunity to still do that, but also be able to create content and bring in other people into that discussion and everything. So it's super exciting. And personally, I've been processing this idea of putting content out. I actually took a break from social media, and I guess I'm still mostly on a break from social media for over 2 years now. And
wow, that's crazy.
During that, yeah.
How are you still alive? Please tell me.
I don't know. It's a mystery. And I'll be completely honest. I don't miss it. I miss the interaction. Like that's where people are right now. You can't get around it. People are there. And so I miss being in the like marketplace, if you can say that, of just people and doing things and talking and rubbing shoulders. But I don't miss some of the downsides of it. And we can talk about some of that more later. But so I've really had a desire to share, to like talk to people, to get ideas out, and not just to get my thoughts out in like a self-promotion way, but like have a conversation, you know? Totally. And so that's why I'm so excited to have other people here. And I was actually just talking to my friend about, he told me this phrase that I've been like, it's been going on and on in my mind of, if you don't share it, it feels like if you don't share it, it's not real. And wow. I was asking him, like, we were working on I was working on the podcast and asking him, oh, would you ever do something like this? Do you have a desire to do a podcast yourself or something? And he shared this phrase, and he was saying how for himself, he had this realization at one point. He was reading a book, and there's really good phrase in the book, and immediately he took that phrase and he wanted to share it with someone. And then at the same moment where he had the desire to share, he had the realization that he wasn't taking the moment to actually bring that phrase in. Like it obviously impacted him enough where he wanted to send it to someone else, but he wasn't taking the opportunity to let it take an impact on his life and to think about it more and have his own thought, created from that original thought, and just that whole process. And so that's why he was sharing that there's almost like a pressure that we built up. I think probably social media has an impact on that. Of, if you read something and you don't share it, like, did you even read it?
Wow, that's really profound, right? Oh my gosh. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's the truth?
Yeah, I'm saying this, and then like now we're sharing our thoughts, right? I see the value of challenging that, because it can be an impulse. I think because there's so much pressure to share and to put out what you're thinking or feeling, we can start to devalue just the process of processing things ourselves, and coming to conclusions and creating ideas and stuff. But at the same time, there's really profound things that happen when we share, when we include other people in the process, when we have to learn something even more because we share. We talk about that a lot, like giving talks. I hate giving talks. You made me, this will be another topic, but as my boss at one point, you like encouraged me to give talks, and every time I hated it, but every time I came out better because of it, so it's definitely like this, there's two sides of the coin.
Yeah, it's so tricky, because from one point I feel like we learn so much by sharing, right? Because we have to do a little bit of processing what we consumed in order to share it to others. Sometimes it's as simple as like you click a button and you don't realize, but if you're processing an idea or a concept, you usually have to put a little bit of thought. So I love that aspect of sharing. I feel like that's a part of who we are as human beings, right? But at the same time, sometimes sharing feels like winning, right? And feels like you made that thing, like you accomplished something just by sharing, right? If you share a quote from a book, then now you really understand that quote, and now you know that quote profoundly, and that's not usually the case. So there's all these tricky things about sharing too. Like I remember me, like personally, there was one point where I wanted to go to the gym, and I used to wake up like so early, like 5 a.m., something like this. And like for a long time, I didn't tell my coworkers, I didn't tell you that I was going to the gym, because I felt like I felt that like that was my moment, and I didn't want to tell people that I was going to the gym, because then it would feel like I already won. I already have that habit. And that was not the case. I was just starting to go and all that, because you don't want like on the next week someone comes to you and say, hey, so how was the gym? You're like, oh yeah, I don't go anymore. So that was the kind of feeling where I feel like once you start like having that habit, now then I felt okay, now I'm going every week. Now I can say that I'm going to the gym.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's like, those are different things, right? Sharing when you have the idea, or when you just start something, rather than sharing, hey, I've been doing this for even a short time. Like I've been doing it for 2 weeks or 2 years or 2 decades, like whatever it is. I think those are different things. And not to say one is right and one is wrong at all. There's totally a place for just being open with, hey, this just happened. Like I'm starting this, or, whatever. But maybe we put too much emphasis on the first one, like maybe we focus more on just sharing when it's like new, and instead of sharing after we've like put the hard work in, and then have something to share.
Yeah, like there's a whole movement right now on Twitter of building in public. There's this hashtag build in public, and people are starting their software projects, and they do that by like the very first line of code that they write, they already start sharing about it. And I feel like that's so nice, and that's amazing, because you bring people together. So that's another aspect of sharing, right? The moment you put something out and the moment that you share the steps of what you're building, the behind the scenes, now people feel a part of what you're building. And if you're building a startup, if you're building your own company, if you're implementing an open source project, maybe like that's one good way of also promoting your project, right? So I love everything about sharing, to be honest. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of the motivation for this, right? Is wanting to build the habit of sharing. And I think that, well, we talked about this offline, but we're both eager to see the benefits that come not only to us, I think we're excited about that, but also to hopefully everyone listening and the people we have on the show and everything, to like create a community around this where we're challenging each other and creating new ideas and everything like that. But the habit of the thing is something we're really excited about.
Yeah, we're super lucky to meet tons of new people all the time, and we have met a lot of people in the past too. It could be like at conferences or just online. Some really bright and smart people. So I feel like it's going to be really exciting to have those conversations here.
Do you want to go a little bit into our backstory?
Mm-hmm. That'll be awesome. Yeah. So, yeah. Tell me, Jonni, who you are.
Who am I? Where to begin? I should have planned what I was gonna say in this part. I knew this was coming too. I grew up in a little town in Portland, Oregon. I have like 3 siblings. I love my family. They've been like a huge support through my whole life. And eventually I moved down to California. I started going to school. I had no idea like what to do. I changed my major like 5 times. But I ended on communications, mostly because it was the easiest and fastest way to finish school. And it was like I was a little bit interested, so it worked out.
Well, here you are applying that communications degree, right?
Yeah, who would have known, right? What, 5 years after, I don't know, something like that. And then after I started like a photography business. In general, I like felt very entrepreneurial. I was very excited to get started on things and build things. And started a photography business doing wedding photography. And that was the first time I got to see or got to control the full life cycle of a business, you know, everything from taxes and finance to building brochures and doing sales pitches and working with like crazy stakeholders, you know, like imagine a wedding, their mother and and their uncle and the other vendors and everything. So it really gave me this little view into the operations of that. And I loved it. I loved all the connecting pieces and how you could make those efficient, partially with technology. You know, you can automate things. I loved like building a website for that business and finding tools to help me do more with less. But after school, I was trying to do that full time, and I was really like very quickly burnt out by trying to be just an entrepreneur. And it was super stressful to not have consistency like financially. I was wanting to get married, and it just wasn't a good thing for that time. And so I started looking for work. I had no idea. I knew like one recruiter in my entire network and friends and everything. I only knew one recruiter, and thankfully I was able to talk to him and did a couple interviews with you. We'll probably get into that at some point, but I'll breeze by that at the moment. And then started working at LifeRay as an intern. So just jumping off the deep end of software development, mostly like front end stuff, and moved around, like started, I guess, in front end technically, and then we had like developer relations together, and then we went to product, and then security, and then now helping lead the operations team for our cloud division at LifeRay. So one of the things I've loved about my journey at LifeRay is I've had been able to participate in so many different departments, and I think it's made me empathetic to the experience of each employee and each member of the team in different areas. And so I try to use that knowledge to build systems and processes and make decisions that are going to help everyone, in those various positions and situations and everything. And I don't get to do a lot of external things. A lot of my work is internal, for the team and for internal stakeholders. So those are kind of my customers. And yeah, I love it. It's super fun. And I don't know. Is there anything else I should share?
Actually, I'm curious to hear from you. Like, how do you feel about working only with internal customers and internal stakeholders most of the time, right? It's not always, but how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I only work with external if something's blowing up. I actually haven't thought about it too much. Like, it wasn't something where, now I'm not talking to people outside the company. I guess I almost just realized that as I was saying it. But I kind of miss having interactions with just people, like new people, on a day-to-day basis. Like, I worked at Starbucks for like 4 years, and one of the things I loved about that is you're always meeting new people, and some people you wish you didn't meet, but most people you like, there's really interesting, and you have like these random conversations about a topic, and you're like, whoa, they're like a CEO of this thing, and I just got to like have a little conversation with them, or they clean houses across the street, or just like anyone. Coffee has a way of normalizing everyone, I think. So I kind of miss that. I miss just being now at home, interacting with the same people every day. There's something about being able to have like new exposure to new people and that kind of thing. But overall, it's consistent, and I think I thrive in that consistency.
Yeah, I feel the same way because I used to go to events a lot and travel and talking to people from different countries, different backgrounds. And now, man, I'm like, okay, I need that kind of feeling again. And that's why I'm so excited about the podcast too, because we can simulate that environment and meet new people and hear their stories. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, totally. So tell us a little bit about you, Zeno.
Okay. Yeah, man. Like, for me, I feel like I always wanted to work with computers, and I was so used to just like play every single day on my computer, listen to songs, and just like browse the internet. And I love that feeling of being connected. And so when it got to the point where I had to choose, okay, what I'm going to study now, it was so clear to me, like, okay, I'm doing something with computers, and let's see how it goes. So I started as a developer. So I was doing Flash development. So basically ActionScript 3, that was the language. And that was during a time where Flash was really amazing and the web was extremely limited, and you couldn't do so much. And with Flash, you could do basically anything. You could create some crazy animations. You could do like some real insane things. And then came to a point where Steve Jobs said, okay, you're actually like, we're not running Flash on our devices again. And then the whole market collapsed, and it was so crazy to see that happening. And I got into HTML, JavaScript, CSS even more. I already liked it, but I got into that even more. And I just kept going, you know, like I was an intern, and then I moved to another company, and I felt like I knew everything about front-end. I was super passionate about front-end, but at the same time, I didn't want to be limited only to front-end. So I saw this position to work with Java, and I was super excited. Okay, now, man, like I hear that you can only be a successful developer if you work with Java or those kinds of back-end technologies. Like you can never make money with HTML. That's all I heard during college. And then when I finally got that job, I had maybe like the team was like 8 people, and they had like all Java developers, but still there was some front-end work to be done there. So then I ended up doing all the front-end work, and once again I was doing front-end. So I realized, okay, I don't need to be a back-end. I don't need to work with Java. I really love front-end. So I kept doing that. I worked at some big companies in Brazil. I'm originally from Brazil. That's why the accent. And then I got this offer to work for a US company. And man, it was so hard to make that decision. I loved my job. I was doing what I loved. And at some point, I was like, okay, I'm actually taking this because yes, I was doing some really impactful work. I was working at this company called Global, and they have this huge sports website. And I love soccer, as any Brazilian. I love soccer. And then I love building stuff with HTML5 and launching, and then having 100, 300, 500,000 people accessing that in one day. It was like super impactful. But at the same time, it was limited to that region. And I always had that thing of like, okay, I want my work to reach as many people as possible. I always had that inside of me. And I feel like that's maybe one of the reasons why we're doing the podcast too. And dude, like I said yes. I got this job at this company called LifeRay, working from Brazil remotely at first. I hated working remotely back then. Man, I hated so much. And then eventually I moved here to the US. So today I live in LA, and it's been 6 years already that I'm here.
Wow.
Crazy.
I didn't know that actually. You were remote before you came to the US?
Yes. I was living in Rio, and I was still like my last day of my last year of university. So I didn't want to move. I loved living in Rio, working in Rio, but I missed like the feeling of be sitting next to someone and seeing that person work, seeing like the hotkeys that they do, the shortcuts, like those little things that you learn so much from. And I was like so eager to go back to a normal office, which is not the case now. I don't feel that way. I actually love working from home today.
Yeah. Okay, this is maybe a tangent, but it reminded me of the early days. I remember you had a repository of all the steps you do when you configure a Mac for the first time. I think it was like a script. You had you ran a command and it configured each thing. And I remember when I was coming on, multiple times, like every time you would have to use my computer, you would get super frustrated, like in the nicest way. Be like, oh man, it's so slow. Like, why is your dock taking forever to slide up? It's taking like extra 2 milliseconds and it's annoying me, or like the hotkeys and everything. And I remember you at that point the script was like outdated. I think I still ran it, and I think it helped a little bit, but maybe it's something else. But it made me think about nowadays. I don't feel like that concept is as common, but I could be wrong. Like this, and I don't know what's changed either. It just made me think of this because I just set up a new computer, and I set it up without migrating from an old computer. And I didn't transfer all the settings. I just I reinstalled applications and I did manual tweaks, but it was far less than I thought I would need to do. And I was just curious what your thoughts were on that. Do you feel like that whole area has changed a lot over the years?
Oh man, I don't think that'll be the same experience for me. Like I really like to change things like to the exact way that I like. For example, I want the dock to be hidden all the time. And then only when I hover, then it shows up. I want my mouse to be as fast as possible. So I put like the settings like super high. And then like I want that whole thing like going crazy when I use my touch bar. So like all that stuff. I really enjoy doing those small tweaks. But maybe it's just because I got used to doing that. I don't know.
But those, I feel like there's a difference between the things that are configurable, like in the settings, and then there's a whole nother group of them that are not configurable. Like you have to know the computer's APIs and like find like know all the commands to run. But yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd be curious. Yeah. I would love to see you set up a new computer nowadays and see how much.
Yeah, but I do like to start everything from scratch because I often get like, if I'm always transferring from one to the other, yes, I save time, but I also bring all this garbage that I don't need anymore. So I like to do a digital detox and declutter as much as possible when I get a new computer.
I think that is like really those minor productivity improvements matter a lot to both of us because we've talked so much over the years of how much each like half a second of productivity you can gain by saving that half second like 10 times a day, over years and years. And I will probably touch on that more times in this podcast, but we've talked about that a lot.
Totally. And I feel like there's also an aspect that we're similar to in a way that we always like to, we want to optimize for performance for sure. We want to save those extra seconds, but we don't want to do that in detriment of a good user experience too. So that's something that I truly believe on this yin-yang kind of thing where form and function are equally important, right? Where, yes, you have this software that does this thing, like let's say coding, right? Okay, you use Vim to code and you get the fastest experience as possible because there's no like UI. It's just like a terminal and that's it. So that this is good. I appreciate people who use that and I feel like it's awesome. But for me too, I really care about the UI, the experience, the colors, and the whole like how everything is gonna tie together. So I really want to go deeper into that subject in future podcasts too.
Yeah, it's a hard balance, and it can become. You can waste more time tweaking than you save with the tweaks.
Totally.
Like I feel that all the time.
I was reading an article yesterday. We can put the link in the show notes. Oh, that's so weird to say, man.
Yeah, we're gonna have show notes.
But I was reading this article about how you can just optimize your personal productivity, right? I feel like they had a specific term for that. I don't quite remember right now, but they were like saying like if the time to like optimize and automate a certain task is so much bigger than the actual time of like executing the task, maybe it's not worth it to do all that configuration, because now you have to also maintain that automation, right? So there's a really fine line between automating and not automating, configuring, or just keeping as is. There's a true cost related to that. But I love that idea of like in this article in particular, they were talking about automating processes, right? So first you have to acknowledge the process. Okay, what are the things that I need to do? That's like most of the times people don't really get to that point. They don't listen like, okay, I'm going to list every single process that I do in my personal life. Okay, once I have those, now I can put a microscope on it and then try to find, okay, now how can I decrease from 3 steps to 2 steps? As simple as is, you're just removing one little thing. And then after you do that, then you can think about automation, because you list it, now you filtered and you remove all the extra stuff, and now you can automate so you can reduce even more steps. And then for the processes that you cannot automate, then you delegate, which is also a really hard thing to do. Like delegation is a whole different game, right?
Yeah, I've never thought of it like that, though. I really like that middle step of filtering before automating. I think sometimes we just go straight to automate. Like, oh, automation is king and automate everything, you know? But like you're sharing, there's a lot of, there's costs involved with automation. Yeah. But there's probably ways we can reduce most of those things that take time, the processes, in a way where we don't have to maintain automation. We just group or we remove steps that actually weren't needed, or combine or something, or add to a different process, or I don't know. And then there's a lot of those would not incur extra costs like automation, but can still improve the time needed for completing the process.
Yeah. Speaking of automation, there's another topic that I really want to talk about during this podcast. Not today necessarily, but in future episodes. But I really want to dive into no code. And I know that you are a big fan of that kind of mentality, like tooling and automating things using Zapier and all that. Recently, Zapier acquired MakerPad, which is like a community of no code developers, let's say. And man, like I really want to get your take on that subject, because I know you automate everything that you touch.
Yeah, that's no code is I feel like the big tsunami that's coming now. Like technology has gotten to a point with cloud computing, and even just the desire, I think, is there to say, do we actually need to build something? Do we actually need, because every line of code you have to maintain, right? And so every line of code you don't have to write is something that you can pay someone else to maintain. And if they can write one line of code for everyone to use, it works. From a cost to maintain, it's much better. It's like a distributed model in one sense. So I think it makes total sense. And especially for myself, I am not very technical. Like I've had different phases of my life where I've been more technical. But at the end of the day, if I had to code something right now, I actually just realized the other day that my GitHub credentials are not set up on my computer.
Come on.
It made me kind of sad. It made me really sad. I was trying to like archive a repo, and then I realized, oh man, it's not set up, and I unfortunately don't feel like it's even worth it to re-authenticate. I probably will just for the sake of like having it there, but that's how far I am from the code. But I still feel like I have to build a lot. And so that's where no code is a game changer for me. So I can be autonomous in my personal life and also at work in a way where I don't have to ask for time from other teams, you know? I can just build the requirements and run with our team. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of times that comes up. I love how we're giving like a little, like some topic teasers.
I'll give you another one.
Yeah,
You're talking about how like if there's a company that they can like write that one line of code and everybody uses it, that's amazing, right? We're talking about the economics of software, right? If you can distribute the same logic and the same behavior, and then someone else takes care of it, now they can distribute that as a SaaS model. And that's something that we also love. I really want to dig deep into SaaS because it's a whole game. Like we work, the company that we work in this PaaS model, right? Platform as a service.
Yep.
We deal with a lot of IaaS models, so infrastructure as a service, but every single day we're using SaaS, software as a service. So that's a topic that I really enjoy, and it's really tricky too because there are different ways that you can approach SaaS. We both also had an experience where we tried to, like, we worked in a product that was SaaS and we failed in terms of making that work, and just like, okay, how much we had to pay for AWS to maintain that was higher than how much we were making.
Yep.
And if you have investment is one thing, if you don't is another thing. So man, like there's so many nice topics.
The whole, it's like SaaS. Sometimes I think of SaaS because it's software as a service, but sometimes I think of it as like service as a service, because at the end of the day, you're abstracting services, you know, like you would provide computing services as a service. You'd provide like even support or administrative services as a service. You know, that's just the whole model of making things accessible. And the further you go, like all the way up to SaaS, is all of it's just abstracting, like one layer that you had to do yourself or you had to do manually, like on a, even support, you know, like the way that you have to open a support request and like go back and forth with them to change a configuration. Like the move towards making things a service is that you can do it yourself, you know? And, but there's a lot of hurdles along the way. And we live in that actually on a daily basis, because a PaaS is strangely in the middle where it's almost SaaS and you can do a lot yourself, but there's still things that are this shared responsibility. And it's, in one sense, I'm always like itching to just go full SaaS, and because it's hard to live in that balance, but I think there's actually a lot of value with being in that with your customers. But.
And as a customer of SaaS, there are all these variables that you now have to worry about too, right? Yes, you're paying someone and you're delegating that service to them, but at the same time now you have a dependency on that company. You never know what are their security rules, how they treat data, how they store that data, who has access to that data. And not only security, like let's talk about just DevOps in general, right? Like, okay, what happens if the site goes down? How are they registering incidents? How they respond to incidents? So there are all these dependencies that you include, which is also a huge risk, right? So at the end of the day, you are always mitigating risk with technology, right? That's basically it.
Yes.
Like you're using technology to mitigate risks, but you can do it in a way where you just like hire 3 people and they work for you and you maintain that thing. When someone leaves, you have to replace and then train and all that stuff. You have to pay for benefits and keep them motivated. So this is one way. The other way is, okay, I'm just paying that service and they deal with all that. But then there are all these other consequences that you have to think about too.
And I mean, I don't really want to bring in politics, but just an interesting recent event that is part of this whole like dependency graph is, early this year, where there's a lot of deplatforming of different, like I know Parler, like literally a whole social network, almost all their vendors basically said, you're not allowed to be a customer of ours. And I would assume that they probably didn't like have that. And most of us, I don't think, even us have that in our near sight in terms of like a risk assessment of, oh, what if this vendor overnight said I can no longer use their service, And they're like off. I think they might be coming back online on some of it, but it's been months and they've basically been offline, in that case. Yeah. So it's a whole nother, you reduce a lot of risk, but there are some off chances that I think the risk can be greater, maybe less frequent, but potentially greater. Even a downtime, you're sitting there, no control. It's happening. The service is gone. Your site is down. And at least if it was your team, maybe there's a greater sense of control, or you could get yourself up faster than you getting grouped in with a bunch of other customers that are getting up. It's a dance for sure.
In like this case, it kind of like exposed the tech industry to an issue, right? Like by depending on all these vendors, they can shut you down at any point. And the way the architecture of the software, the way you make those decisions is going to affect your business, right? You can either go completely on that sense of, okay, like using every single vendor that is possible. Like in their case, right, they were using AWS and all those other dependencies, right? But I just remember like there was a tweet from the guy who, I think that's the guy like who created Pirate Bay. And like he said, like, oh my gosh, like how unprepared they were. Because like if you were building a torrent site, like there are all these things.
Yeah, you're like ready.
Like your architecture is completely independent. You are building something that will, you can move to different servers, and it doesn't matter what happens. You can go to one geographic location or another. So yes, they're optimized to be that way, right? But then most companies nowadays, they're optimized for go-to-market, right? They need to have a super fast go-to-market. They need to put an MVP in them. So in those situations, now you are exposed to all those risks.
Yeah. It'd be curious to hear if like the big players, like Twitter. I don't know who like hosts Twitter, maybe they do it themselves. But if they were in the same situation, would they be like more nimble, more prepared to switch? Like maybe they're on AWS. Could they just move to GCP in like a week?
Yeah. I heard they are.
Maybe they're ready.
I heard some stuff that they are.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, man. It's like there's so many interesting subjects, and I'm really excited to dive into those with you. I feel like we can talk only about engineering, or we can talk only about startups, or only about, big tech or indie hacking. And like there's so many different aspects. And we can talk about careers. We can talk about all these issues that we all have to go through working in this industry. So, man, I'm really excited to do this. Yeah, so if you are listening right now, like we would love to know from you, okay, what are the things that you are interested on? Like what are the topics, and who are the people that you would love to like hear more from? So just if you're listening this on a platform that has comments, then leave a comment. If you are listening on, I don't know, Spotify, okay, you can always reach out to us on Twitter or LinkedIn, whatever, and just tell us, because we're super excited to invite other people and talk about the subjects that you are interested on too. So yeah, let us know.